The food bank was located in a small, worn-down building at the edge of the community, its windows fogged with the cold of early morning. A line had already formed, stretching out the door and down the sidewalk, with people standing shoulder to shoulder, all waiting patiently. The air was crisp, a sharp wind cutting through the trees, making the wait even more uncomfortable. Some people had their heads bowed, lost in thought, while others shuffled their feet, trying to keep warm. There was an unspoken heaviness in the atmosphere, a quiet desperation that lingered between every exchange. At the back of the line, a young man in military uniform stood, his stance strong but his eyes weary. He was an unfamiliar sight in a place like this. His uniform, once pressed and sharp, now looked worn, the fabric faded from months of deployment. The soldier was quiet, looking around but not making eye contact with anyone. His face was hard to read, a mixture of resolve and something deeper, perhaps shame, perhaps fatigue. He had returned home recently after a long tour of duty, but life back in the States hadn't been easy. He had expected things to fall into place, but instead he found himself struggling in ways he never had before. The people around him were a mix of different ages, their faces telling stories of hardship. A mother with 2 children, an elderly couple with hunched backs, and a young man nervously glancing around. Everyone stood in silence, waiting for their turn to be handed a box of food that would get them through another week. The tension in the air felt like it could snap at any moment. The soldier stood still, his eyes focused on the ground in front of him, trying to ignore the heavy thoughts swirling in his mind. He had always been proud of his service, the missions, the camaraderie, the sense of purpose, but now, in this cold line, waiting for food like everyone else, it felt like he was facing a failure he couldn't explain. There was a weight in his chest, a sharp pang of shame that he couldn't shake. He had never imagined he would find himself in this position, accepting charity. He had fought for his country, for others. How could he now stand in line, dependent on the generosity of strangers? Yet deep down, he knew he had no other choice. The money he had saved during his service had quickly drained away. Finding a stable job had proven harder than he had anticipated, and each day felt like a battle against mounting bills and a dwindling sense of self-worth. It was a low point, one that gnawed at his pride and tested his resilience. He could almost feel his uniform, his symbol of honor, mocking him. It didn't seem to matter here, at the food bank, where everyone was stripped of their titles and labels. As the soldier stood there, he couldn't help but notice the others in the line. Each face seemed to tell a different story of hardship, but they were all connected by the same struggle. To his left, a mother held her 2 small children close, the young girl clutching a stuffed bunny that looked worn and frayed. The boy, barely old enough to walk, had a tired look in his eyes, as though he understood more about his mother's worries than a child should. The soldier's heart ached for them, for the weight of their uncertainty. A few steps ahead, an elderly couple shuffled along, their hands shaking slightly as they gripped their bags. The man's frail frame seemed barely able to support the heavy burden of his life, and his wife's worn face was full of quiet concern, trying to stay strong for him, yet equally fragile. The soldier couldn't help but feel a wave of sympathy for them. He remembered his own grandparents, who had always insisted they were fine, even when they weren't. Nearby, a young man shifted nervously, glancing at the soldier every few moments. He wasn't much older than the soldier, but his unease was palpable. He kept his eyes down, avoiding contact, unsure of what to say or do, perhaps not even knowing how to ask for help. The soldier could feel the nervous energy radiating from him. They shared an unspoken understanding, 2 men who were both humbled by life's twists. As the soldier took in all the faces around him, something changed. The heavy weight in the air began to lift. If only a little. There was an odd sense of solidarity among the group. A mother whispered to the elderly couple, offering a joke to lighten their spirits. The elderly man smiled, grateful for the distraction, and chuckled softly. A few people exchanged small words, offering simple pleasantries, perhaps to distract themselves from the uncomfortable silence. And yet, even in these quiet moments, there was a deeper connection. They were all in this together. They all understood the weight of what it meant to be here, to be waiting. Just as the soldier felt overwhelmed by the emotional weight of it all, something caught his eye. A woman, stepping forward from the back of the line, moved with a quiet determination. She wasn't like the others, Older than most in the line, her hair streaked with gray and tucked beneath a scarf, she walked with an elegance that stood in contrast to the tired faces around her. Her eyes, however, held a depth of kindness, but there was something more, a quiet strength in the way she carried herself. The soldier couldn't look away. Something about her felt different, like she carried a story far greater than what was visible. As she reached the front of the line, the crowd took notice. Even the murmurs quieted for a moment, as she stood there, poised and calm. As the woman reached the front of the line, the food bank volunteer, a young man with tired eyes and a soft voice, looked up at her. He was busy organizing boxes of food, trying to keep the line moving when she spoke. Her voice, clear and steady, cut through the low murmurs of the crowd. "I'm not here to take food today," she said, her words carrying an authority that caught the volunteer off guard. She paused, glancing over her shoulder at the people standing in line, all eyes now turned toward her. There was a moment of hesitation before she continued. "Instead, I'm here to give something that means more than what's in those boxes." The volunteer blinked, unsure of what to say. He had seen his share of donations, but nothing quite like this. People gave what they could, usually small amounts, but what she was offering was different. He could feel it in the air. With a small, almost imperceptible smile, the woman reached into her bag and pulled out a thick, cream-colored envelope. The room seemed to hold its breath as she carefully opened it, revealing the contents inside. For a moment, it was unclear what it was, but then she spoke again. "I'm donating enough to cover the cost of food for the next few months," she said, her voice unwavering. "This community needs more than what we've been able to provide, and I want to make sure that no one here goes hungry." A stunned silence swept through the line. The soldier, standing near the back, felt his breath catch in his chest. His eyes widened as he processed what the woman had just said. This was no small gesture, this was a lifeline for so many people here, including himself. The volunteer, still in shock, looked down at the envelope, and back up at the woman, his hands trembling slightly. Are you sure?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The woman nodded, her expression calm, but resolute. "I'm sure, it's the least I can do." The people in the line, who had been waiting so quietly just moments ago, now exchanged looks of disbelief. Some rubbed their eyes, unsure if they had heard correctly. The young mother with her children stepped forward, her face a mix of confusion and wonder. The elderly couple, who had been standing hunched together for so long, straightened up, blinking in surprise. Even the young man who had been nervously glancing around, was frozen in place, staring at the woman as if she were some kind of miracle. The soldier's heart beat faster. He couldn't quite grasp what he was witnessing. Was this real, a woman, giving away something so significant to a group of strangers, just like that? It was almost too much to comprehend. As the woman turned to leave, her eyes briefly met the soldier's. There was a quiet understanding between them, something unspoken. He could see that she wasn't just giving away money, she was offering hope, a beacon of light in the middle of the darkness that so many of them were experiencing. She wasn't just helping them today, she was planting the seeds for a better tomorrow. The crowd was still in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of the woman's donation, and then, slowly, as if waking from a trance, the murmurs began to spread. Whispers of gratitude, astonishment, and admiration filled the air. The tension that had once hung thick in the line lifted, replaced by a warmth, a sense of connection that hadn't been there before. The soldier's chest tightened. He realized that in a single moment, the woman had reminded everyone of something important. There was kindness left in the world, even in the most unexpected places. He had been standing in that line, feeling like a failure, but now, as the crowd began to respond to the woman's generosity, he could feel something stirring inside him. Something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to believe that things could get better. This act of selflessness, this woman's gift, had the power to ripple out far beyond this moment, touching everyone in the line, and beyond. The soldier didn't just see the food bank anymore, he saw a community coming together, not just to survive, but to rebuild. His heart swelled with gratitude, and for a brief moment, he felt like he wasn't just a soldier who had fallen on hard times, he was part of something bigger. Something that in this moment, felt truly worth fighting for. As the woman turned to leave, her step light but purposeful, the soldier found himself rooted to the spot. He had watched her walk away, but something tugged at him, a deep sense of gratitude mixed with curiosity. He couldn't let her leave without at least saying something. Thank you seemed like the least he could offer, but he needed to understand more. Why had she done this? What drove her to make such a significant donation? Without thinking, he stepped forward, his boots crunching softly on the gravel path as he approached her. She was about to turn the corner when he called out, "Excuse me, ma'am." She stopped and looked back at him, her expression kind but knowing, as if she had been expecting this. She smiled, waiting for him to catch up. I wanted to thank you," the soldier began, his voice thick with emotion. You don't know what you've done for everyone here. I don't think anyone was expecting something like that." The woman nodded gently, her eyes softening. "It's nothing," she said, but the sincerity in her voice told him it was far from that. She stepped closer, a subtle invitation to talk, to share more. The soldier hesitated, but then asked the question that had been burning in his mind. "Why did you do it? I mean, it's not every day you see someone give so much, especially someone who doesn't know any of us." The woman's smile faded slightly, and she took a deep breath, as though she had been waiting for someone to ask. "I've been where you all are," she said quietly, her gaze distant for a moment. "When I was younger, my family had nothing. We were poor, struggling to make ends meet. I remember the days when we didn't know if we'd have food on the table, when the pantry was bare. I've been to food banks like this, waiting in line, hoping for just a little something to help us get through." The soldier listened intently, his heart aching as he imagined the woman's past. She was so poised, so confident now, but he could hear the pain in her voice, the rawness of those memories still close to the surface. "I worked hard to turn my life around," she continued. "Got a job, saved everything I could, and slowly, bit by bit, I started to make something of myself. But I never forgot what it was like, what it felt like to not know where your next meal was coming from. And I promised myself that, when I was able, I would give back, that I wouldn't forget the people still standing in line, waiting for a hand up." The soldier nodded, feeling a deep connection to her words. He had faced hardship too, though not the same as hers. He had spent years fighting in foreign lands, coming home only to face the harsh realities of reintegrating into civilian life. But her story reminded him that struggle didn't define a person, resilience did. And this woman had come from nothing, just as he had, and now, she was using her strength to lift others up. "I didn't do it for praise," she said, her eyes meeting his with a quiet intensity. "I did it because I know what it feels like to need help. I want others to feel that sense of hope, just like I did when I got a second chance." The soldier stood there, his chest tightening as he took in her words. She had not only given money, she had given hope, a reminder that kindness and resilience could change lives. And for the first time in a long while, he felt that weight in his chest lift. Her story had given him something he had lost along the way: faith. "Thank you," the soldier said, his voice softer now, almost reverent. "Your kindness, it's more than just the money, it's the hope. It's the reminder that things can get better." The woman smiled again, a warmth in her eyes. "You're welcome. Just remember, there's always a way forward. Sometimes, it just takes a little help along the way." As the soldier watched her walk away, a sense of peace settled over him. He wasn't just a soldier anymore, standing in line for food. He was part of something bigger, a community bound by the resilience and kindness of people who had been through the worst, and still chose to lift others up. The conversation with the woman had left him feeling lighter, as though a burden had been shared, and for the first time in a long while, he believed that things would get better. As the soldier walked away from the food bank that day, a sense of calm washed over him, one he hadn't felt in months. The weight of shame that had burdened him since he had arrived had been replaced with a quiet strength. He no longer saw himself as someone who had failed or was unworthy of help. Instead, he understood that there was no shame in standing together, in accepting support from a community that cared for one another. For the first time, he felt part of something larger than himself, part of a shared struggle and a shared hope. The woman's act of kindness had given him more than just food for the day, it had given him a renewed sense of possibility, As he walked down the street, his thoughts turned to the future. He wondered how, one day he might be able to give back, to offer someone else the same hope the woman had given him. Perhaps, just like her, he could help someone who needed a little light in their life. The food bank line, once a place of quiet desperation, now felt different to him. It was a place of connection, of understanding. He glanced back at the woman, still walking away, her figure becoming smaller in the distance. Her kindness would stay with him forever, a reminder that even in the darkest times, small acts of love and generosity could create ripples of hope. Sometimes, all it takes is one person, one small gesture, to change everything. What started as a quiet, desperate wait in line, turned into a life-changing moment for one soldier, all thanks to a woman's selfless act of kindness. Her donation wasn't just money, it was a reminder that there is always hope, even in the darkest times, and that one small gesture can spark a change in the lives of many. This story shows us that when we come together as a community, we can lift each other up in ways we may never fully understand. If this story inspired you, don't forget to share it with someone who might need a little light in their life today. And remember, no act of kindness is too small, because it might just change someone's world. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more heartfelt tales.